Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. My name is Anuj, and I'm the moderator for today's exciting event. I would firstly like to thank you for taking the time out to attend this interactive Power Hour session hosted by Harbinger. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I would like to inform you that Power Hour is a series of interactive roundtable discussions hosted by Harbinger, wherein industry stalwarts share their experiences and insights on a particular topic. The topic for today's discussion is how to design scalable solutions for workforce reskilling, I'm sorry. And if you're someone who is interested in the future of learning, we also have a bonus for you at the end of this Power Hour session. Yes, we would be sharing with you an expert ebook on future of learning, creating an e-learning ecosystem to support the future workforce. This ebook will help explore factors driving the future of learning, pre-pandemic learning versus post-pandemic learning, and learners and educators' perspective on this subject. This ebook will also throw light on the future of L&D trends, future L&D trends like gamification, artificial intelligence in learning, training, hybrid workforce, micro-learning, mobile learning, upskilling, and reskilling. So now let us watch a short introduction video before we proceed.
Ensure you have selected the right speaker for audio output. Test your speaker to ensure it is working fine from the audio settings option on the lower left corner of your screen. If necessary, dial in using phone.
With that, it's time for the introduction. Our host for today's roundtable is Dr. Vikas Joshi. Dr. Vikas Joshi is a business leader who is passionate about product development and technology entrepreneurship. His mission is to help create software products that make a difference. And a key part of that mission is to inspire tech professionals and entrepreneurs to grow and develop. As a founder and CEO of Harbinger Group, Vikas drives Harbinger's vision with a relentless focus on innovation. His doctoral research at the University of Pennsylvania was on entrepreneurial learning. He's also an alumnus of the Harvard Business School. So we welcome you, Vikas, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anuj, and big hello to everyone here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are on the planet. We have a great audience of professionals today and a wonderful panel, and I'm going to introduce them to you in just a few minutes. But to go over the game plan for today, our topic is designing scalable solutions for workforce skilling. And the way we're going to do this is to talk a little bit about why workforce skilling is front and center in the corner office, the unique challenges of skilling in the eyes of our panelists and their stories. Then we go a step further and we ask the question, when you try to develop skilling at high scale, when you're talking about not just hundreds, but thousands and tens of thousands of learners, whether within the enterprise or among the extended enterprise, including your franchisees or customers, what is different? And finally, a framework for designing skilling programs at scale. What does that look like? What are some of the things, some of the building blocks that you need to have to start the journey of designing skilling at scale? So with that plan, then, let's get right after it. The future of learning is here, and there are two important shifts that characterize today's work. The first is the skill economy. And obviously, there is a need and a never-ending quest for new skills, because as technology develops, a lot of work gets automated and it is replaced by other kinds of work. And that's simple example would be ChatGPT. You would say that it does some of your work, but then you need to learn prompt engineering. So that's just an example, right? The other major shift is hybrid work. People want to work from wherever they are. And so that means it's a distributed workforce. And clearly that means that your skill building program is going to have to be supporting people's desire to be in different places. So with these two trends, you have some unmet business goals, and we have them listed here. One of them boils down to skill building. And what's interesting is that each industry feels the skilling challenges differently. Let me explain what I mean by that. Think about tech companies. The skill base here keeps shifting. What's relevant today becomes obsolete in a matter of months. So the challenge is the continuous scaling of employees. But if you look at manufacturing, you might realize that HR organizations have to contend with an aging workforce. And as people move out of organizations due to retirement, you need to be able to backfill new workers. So how do you transfer skills? In retail, you have a wholly different story. There, you're talking about high churn. You're talking about a lot of gig workers that are employed for a while. And then by the time they learn how to do their work, they're already ready to move on. So depending on the industry, you're going to need to solve for different problems. Now, how does this reflect in the way CEOs think? According to a recent global CEO survey by PwC, 74% of global CEOs were concerned about the availability of key skills, 32% extremely concerned. So right at the corner office, you see this concern. What about talent acquisition leaders, people who are in HR and recruiting and hiring? What's their perspective? And here's the answer. Monster did an annual global survey that showed that employers' top challenge remains finding candidates with the right skills. Now let's head over to the chief learning officers, L&D leaders, and see what's their perspective. When you look at the workplace learning report by LinkedIn Learning, upskilling seems to be the second from the top focus area for the year 2022. So again, upskilling, reskilling becomes important from the CLO office as well. Now let's step back and ask ourselves about one more stakeholder, and that's the employee. What do employees think about skilling? What's their view? And here, only 40% of employees said that their company is doing enough for their upskilling. So there's this clear gap between the perceived need and the way the need is getting addressed. So this is a perfect time to have a poll. And I want to ask you, is designing a skilling program on your priority list? And this is a single choice question. So as the poll comes up, please be ready to cast your vote.
So the poll is up for our audience.
Yes, I can see it.
So we have about 60% participation. We'll give it a moment more.
Okay, let's call it.
Sure.
So what do we see here? Most of you are already implementing it, or need to improve your implementations, right? So clearly, you are aligned with what we see in the secondary research. I'm going to ask one more question, and this is a multiple answer question. You can take out the results if you like. Let's bring up the second poll. What are your top reasons for skilling employees? It's okay to choose more than one.
Let's give it 15 more seconds.
Okay.
Okay, may I end the poll, Vikas?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Sharing the results. Yeah.
Very interesting. The two top things any manager is responsible for is results and retention. Those are exactly the two reasons why most of you consider skilling to be essential, in addition to several other reasons, all the way up to company brand. Okay, so let's stop sharing these results and say that this is now the best time to introduce our amazing panel. We have Cleon Wellington, who is our enterprise learning and development professional. Cleon's professional passion is interactive adult education. He is a learning strategist, and he has worked on corporate education as well as training at Intel, Care Innovations, and Midmark. He has taught in higher education, and he has consulted with government and nonprofits as well. He has a MS in Information and Communication Sciences, a master's in Education, Instructional System Technologies, and a BA in Communications and Theater Arts. Wow. It's great to have you, Cleon, and welcome to the panel. And tell us what makes you interested in this topic.
Well, thank you for the introduction, and hello, everyone. My passion in this area is because it's constantly changing. There's always something new, skills to teach, technology to use, different ways people learn, and helping people improve their skills and learn new ones, as I said, has been my passion. And two things that I really like to do is see the big picture of things and then work on the details to make it happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for joining us from Michigan. We also have Savita Nair, who is head of customer onboarding at Adobe. Savita leads the customer onboarding at Adobe Learning Manager. She's a professional with over 20 years of expertise in learning consulting, capability strategy, and management, and the design and implementation of learning technology ecosystems. Her prior experience is in the financial industry, and she's passionate about using technology to solve business challenges and improve organizational capability. Savita, thank you so much for joining us from Bengaluru. Please say hello and tell us what you like about this topic.
Thank you. I'm very, very happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to a robust discussion on this topic and to learn a lot from all of you here. So the bit that really interests me about this, or the the aspect that I'm very passionate about is the fact that the change, like Cleon mentioned, it's so rapid now, and all the other industrial revolutions, so to speak, have been linear, whereas now it's so exponential, and I have this fear that we are leaving a large population out of this ecosystem that we are building. And so I want to do my bit to make sure that we plug those gaps in, and I don't think it's possible without technology. And that's why I moved from a banking sort of a background to a complete tech organization, because that's a skill that I need to learn as well. And now we are implementing tech ecosystems in large organizations. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation again.
Thank you, and looking forward to your stories and insights. We do have Umesh Kanade, Vice President at Harbinger Group. Welcome, Umesh. Umesh has more than 2 decades of experience in leading software development, cloud engineering, technology research, and pre-sales activities. He has special interest in cloud computing and has been the go-to person for all cloud queries. Umesh is driving strategic initiatives of building competitive advantage through the Center of Excellence and positioning it through marketing. So, Umesh, what makes you interested in this topic today?
Thank you, Vikas. First of all, it's a pleasure to be part of this panel and pleasure talking to all of you today. Skilling is very close to my heart, and it's doubly interesting for me because at Harbinger, I'm playing a capability development function head role, and which is responsible for skilling of workforce across the group. And at the same time, I drive the Center of Excellence function, which is responsible for innovating and designing skilling solutions based on customer-specific business needs. So, having experienced the challenges of planning this whole skilling program at the group level, and having seen the challenges that our customers are talking about, and it's more like validation of all these solution approaches and the framework discussions. And I'm looking forward to this conversation to know more about all the stories here.
Wonderful. So once again, welcome. And let's start with Cleon and then followed by Savita with the first question, which is, how is the design of skilling programs different from other types of training or education interventions, not specifically focused on skilling? So maybe, Cleon, you can get us started.
Sure. So it's an interesting question because, training, skilling, how are they intertwined? Are they the same or are they different? So if you look at traditional training, you might call that as passive. From skilling, I see that as very active. So it really depends upon one's definition of training. If you see training as information transfer, then they are very different. Training as just information transfer is, my word, communication. While the term skilling seldom comes up in my conversations with L&D, skilling could be defined as the outcome of effective training. So training needs to include the application, knowing what to do, learning the skills, practicing them, getting feedback, and being able to apply them in real work situations is the goal of skill training.
Wonderful. And would you also say that the end result of such skill training programs usually ends up being attainment of certain competencies, and therefore these are driven by those end outcomes to a greater degree than imparting knowledge?
Correct. So just because I give you knowledge does not mean that you know how to actually use it in certain situations. You may understand it, but can I actually apply it? I've got a 15-year-old son who wants to learn to drive. Do I just have him watch a video or read a book and then give him the keys and say, here you go? I don't think so. So you actually have to apply things so that you can learn it, get feedback on it, reinforce it, and skills in today's world are constantly changing. So it's not a one and done environment.
Understood. Savita, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I agree. I think so I relate it to a tennis analogy. I know what a backhand is. I don't necessarily know how to do that, and I think it's also about not just about being able to, but at a certain competency level, and in the real world. So not with my 3-year-old or not with my dog, but being able to actually do it with, at a professional level. And also, I think one piece of skilling that we need to consider is, it is that the right approach also? That, do I want to skill somebody? Do I want to hire? So there's a whole percentage game there, and a strategy, a talent strategy behind it. So that's a lens also that I would like to bring in, maybe as we continue this conversation. But yeah, it is definitely different from just knowledge. And if we go back to the instructional design and adult learning theories in the Bloom's levels, right, it's 1 and 3. So a training does take into account Bloom's levels 1, 2, and 3 as well. But in a skilling, I think the difference is the competence and the ability to do it in the real world. And that means you need to provide them a risk-free environment. So continuing with Cleon's analogy, it's not just giving your 15-year-old a car, but a safe place to actually drive that, so that he's not a hazard to himself, nor to other people. And being able to do this at scale.
Right. Absolutely. So clearly, I mean, there's with the skills, you do something, and therefore one would imagine that things like reinforcement, practice, job aids, all those things would begin to matter, or working on those things in groups, because a lot of this is socio-materially mediated, right? So you need to have the tools of trade to be able to do something. And some of that may also play into the design of skilling programs. So let's go to a more interesting question, which is the challenges that you face in implementing those same skilling programs at scale. You have examples potentially from Intel, from in your case, the ANZ Bank, and so on. So let's hear about that. Whoever wants to go first.
Sure. So one of the challenges, I think, is a skilling program. Like I said, the lens that I want to bring in is that a skilling program is not necessarily a one-size-fits-all solution, and it may only be one of the levers that you're pulling. There is, how much do I hire? How much do I cross-skill? How many people am I upskilling? How many people am I letting go of? How many am I getting from the contracting with my partners? So there's a whole ecosystem that you have to build around this. And maybe so if you have similar competencies, for example, that you can get within your organization, then it's easier to skill up because the capabilities are transferable. And being able to do this in an agile way means that you have to create the structures, processes, systems, the technology, everything in your organization aligned to be able to pivot really quickly. And that's not possible with, let's say, you have a workforce of 85,000 people. You can't possibly train everybody or reskill everybody to reach the level of competence that you're looking for. So skilling, let's say you identified that, hey, 20% of my current organizational capability or skill is something that I can transfer to this new requirement, and that's the population that I'm targeting. Then you're kind of managing that scale. You're sort of eating the elephant one bite at a time, so to speak. So you tackle that story first, the 20%, so that you have that much to move in the market. And then you look at other strategies to supplement it. But the challenge, even within that 20% that I've experienced when trying to implement something like this, was the fact that people are not, even though they're doing the same job, we may not be at the same capability right now. We're all at different levels, and one training program cannot bring everybody to that level that at which they should operate. And that means that you have to cater for personalization. And now the buzzword in L&D space is in the flow of work, learning in the flow of work. How do we do that? That's one way I think that'll help with scale. And we found that performance support tools actually helped us in this process. and also categorizing your, so if you think about what do I teach the first principles of the job, or of that field. And then if it's something that's rote, for example, technology can take care of that. And now with AI, machine learning, all of these coming into play, there's a lot of it that technology can help you with. And there's the in the people aspect, I think we need to think a lot more.
Got it. Yes. So thank you for bringing out the ecosystem aspect here, because yeah, that's so critical. Cleo?
So she did an excellent job talking about it as an ecosystem, high level, kind of broad based. I'm going to focus in more on the individual learners within an organization. So if we take Intel perspective, 120,000 people across the globe in 40, 50 countries. I don't remember how many we're in at this point, but you get lots of different things. But one of the things that we really find is getting past this is what I want to tell them. Because there's so many times, this is what I want people to know. Well, what do you really want them to do? Well, I don't really know. I haven't defined that. So that's where we need to start, is to really understand what it is that people need to be able to do and how do we measure if they're doing it. And in today's world, there's challenges of just getting through information clutter and getting the learner's attention. And being able, as she talked about, delivering what they need when they need it in a way that works for them. So as an example, at the Intel fabrication plants, people are in these bunny suits that take a long time to get on, and because they're in a clean environment. So when you take them out and send them to a class for an hour and a half or so, that's a big change in the workflow and the productivity. However, if you are able to deliver training to them in the flow of work on their phone in a 1 or 2 or 3 minute kind of interactive scenario, then they can try to apply that right there on the job as well. So delivering what they need when they need it in the way that actually works for that individual or that culture or that environment, and then having the learners really understand what's in it for them to learn this material. So it's not that I'm just telling you that you need to do this, but why should I, as the learner, spend my time and brain power learning that? And as we go back to the managers, we're not just telling them what to do. The managers must commit to supporting the learners learning how to do it more effectively.
Absolutely. So it's not just about the content, but it's also about the call it motivation or engagement, intrinsic engagement with the content, right? That
Correct.
You target. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned, what are the jobs to be done and how do we measure that the jobs are being done? I was talking to a bunch of L&D people with a tech company, perhaps the largest in the world, and they said that for a new intake of essentially college grads, one of the metrics they have is their code at the end of the 3-week program has to be indistinguishable from a control group that also writes code on the same set of problems. And if that happens, then the training has succeeded. So because clearly they've demonstrated the level of skill for a certain kind of problems. Obviously for harder problems, they would need longer, but I thought that was an interesting way of looking at nailing the outcome in very objective terms. So I'm gonna sort of move on and raise one other question, but before that, let me just quickly share my screen. To sort of share some thoughts on what skilling at scale we have seen involve. The first is the audience diversity. We work with some of the largest skill learning catalog vendors in the world, and one of the things they talk about is, globalization of their course content is not just translation. It's also about, local regulations, for example, or, localizing the examples. And so when you think about the diversity of the audience, producing the versions of your content that support that audience mix becomes important. The other piece has to do with communication. I guess we can have perhaps Savita tell us a little bit more about it, but there's a huge change management around skilling programs. And maybe I'll just sort of interrupt myself and ask Savita to weigh in a little bit on that, please.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So the change management piece is huge. And if we don't manage it well, the most well-intentioned, you can throw a lot of money at it, but it won't solve your basic problem. And we have to understand that we are dealing with people, and that means mindsets. And what we found is that, while I mean, this is proven in behavioral economics that, we know logically it makes sense. I know I should eat right. I know I should exercise. I know the benefits, but I don't necessarily do it, right? It's the same thing. It's the same set of people who are working for us. It's the same set of, I'm bringing my whole personality to work, and it shapes how I work as well. So we should be, while all of us agree that, the way it's changing, we are all lifelong learners, and, in theory, all of it makes sense. But when, what it means is that I'm becoming an expert and a novice within months. So today I'm an expert in the topic, and tomorrow I'm a novice. And that's, it's not easy for people to deal with that. So change management systems play a really big role in this. And one thing that, really worked for us is to remove the risk factor and provide room for error, and say that it's fine. All of us make mistakes, and then we publish the mistakes.
Interesting.
So after every project, we say, okay, what are the mistakes that we did, and what have we learned from this? And we operationalize that process, and it feeds into our knowledge management system, that these are the mistakes we've made, and we're celebrating the mistakes as much as the successes, so that we're not making that mistake again. And to make this very organic takes a lot of time and investment from executives, not just in terms of the time, but in terms of the how they frame it, right? In every conversation they are having, we have, as a talent management team, we had to kind of give them guidelines. How do you bring up these topics? How do you talk about it? So there's a lot of coaching involved for the leadership team as well. So yeah, it's not, it requires a lot of investment, but it's worth it at the end, because once you set that practice and it becomes a culture of the place, then every change can tap into that same network again and again, because then it's become part of your culture.
Absolutely. And this whole culture aspect is so important. It's almost as though culture were the spoon through which you deliver learning to people, right? I mean, they'll accept it more easily if the culture celebrated failures. I think that's a very insightful statement. I want to also move on and say that digitization of L&D and use of technology to deliver learning becomes very important when you're skilling at scale, because this is personalized more easily, because everyone wants to practice in their own way at their own scale and speed. And so that's important. Globalization, I think we touched upon that a little bit. Modernization, a lot of the times, content becomes old before you know it, right? I mean, the visuals begin to look dated. Some of the content begins to look outdated, and so on. So when you have scalable skilling initiatives, they have to be seen as desirable to participate in. There has to be the cool factor. And so modernization becomes important from that perspective as well. And finally, versioning, because you would maintain multiple versions for, depending on locales, nationalities, languages, types of learning styles, and so on. So I wanted to lay this background to my next question, which is again back to all of you, is how do you go about designing scalable and effective learning skilling programs, considering that there's this need for use of technology, personalization, modernization, some change management around it, potential globalization, managing versions, all the factors that we just looked at. So I'll kind of leave it at that and, just take it from here.
You want me to jump in first?
Yeah, sure, Kim, go ahead.
All right, so we've talked about the current and future capabilities of using technology, which I think is an exciting opportunity for us to actually individualize the training for the person. So, how do we use the tech and the automation of the systems through AI and tracking the user behaviors and so forth to really give people what they need when they need it, as we talked about within the flow of work. And doing that short, frequent training burst can be accomplished in 2 to 5 minutes and so forth. You can really do the reinforcement and the repetition that an individual learner needs, not just what the group at large needs. So based upon how I respond, what I want to learn, how I answer questions, how I do activities, the systems can really learn you as an individual learner so that it can adapt and deliver that training. So tracking what each learner knows and where they struggle to be able to customize that content delivered to them with an appropriate frequency is something that we have now available to us, and will even more going forward that we have not had, a decade ago or even a few years ago.
Right. And you just mentioned appropriate frequency. So are you talking about sort of a longitudinal sort of fighting the forgetting curve and sort of bringing back reinforcements periodically? Is that where you're going with that?
Yeah, so based upon the forgetting curve, if I learn something today and I don't use it and I don't reapply it in some manner, or if I don't restudy it, in a week it's pretty much gone. I might remember 10% of it. So how do I not take an hour's worth of learning and then remember 10% of it? How do I take a 2-minute learning and apply it so that I can remember it and then the next part? So the frequency of the learning, the repetition of it, and putting it in bites that a human can grasp and understand and apply within their flow of work, because the work is constantly changing, as you talk about, and the skills that people need is constantly changing. So it's no longer pulling people out, putting them in a half-day conference room and showing them slides and have discussions around the table. Some of those things are appropriate, especially for management and teamwork and so forth. But for the actual job skilling that we're talking about, it's totally changed on how we are able to do that today. And I think much more for the better for the outcome of the company and for the individuals.
Interesting. So these embedding these short bursts of learning within the flow of work is almost seems like a way of preempting the forgetting curve, because you're delivering it anyway at the moment of need, right?
Right. And you can control those bursts through the technology by how I answer questions in a 2-minute questionnaire, or how I answer, how would you do this, and try to apply it. The system can monitor my answers versus everybody else's, and then repeat the kind of things that I struggle with, and just give me a little reinforcement on the things that I know, and then being able to use, augmented reality and virtual reality to actually do them without actually doing it in the actual machine itself, gives me that practice scenario as well.
Right.
So
Any
I
other
found
thoughts?
sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I found that, when we were looking at, our competition, for example, when we process home loans, right, the faster we can process it and turn it around, the chances are that the customer goes with us. Things like mortgages and stuff, right? So from a 3-day window, we reduced it to a 2-hour window, which means that we are beating our competition out of the market because of how quickly we are processing it. And one way we did this was through the performance report mechanism. So I don't need somebody, so if I compare someone who's 3 months into the job versus someone who's 10 or 2 years, the person in, with 2 years is much more skilled and therefore is able to process that much faster, makes fewer errors, all of that. So what we did is we use machine learning to understand how they navigate, what they're doing, and we captured this knowledge and we transferred it to a performance support tool. So when a 3-month-old employee is actually hovering somewhere, right, the walk me jumps in there and says, you should actually be doing this now. You should be doing something else now. And this is the flow of work, right? In the flow of work, it's guiding this person to do it. And because they process, hundreds of such applications in a day over a period of time, they're developing it. They don't need the walk me anymore. And it comes in only when they require it, not throughout the process. So what we could do very quickly is that get this 3-month-old employee at the same level of skill as maybe someone who's not 2 years, but maybe 16 months or something around that area. So these kind of, I really believe in this flow of work, guiding systems. I've seen it really achieve success. But again, you have to do some work initially in setting that up.
Mm-hmm. And so in your newer products with the tech company, where you're currently responsible for onboarding customers, do you see in similar sort of needs in terms of observing customer behaviors or having some kind of an in-app training embedded? What have you seen?
So what we're seeing is, so in Adobe Learning Manager, we have something called a fluidic player, which you can basically put anywhere in your web page or wherever it is, and you can program it or have it available in your performance support tool. So a 5-minute, 2-minute, whatever suits your requirement, and it plays there. We've also seen user generated content being used very extensively by some of our customers in the social learning space. So where things change really quickly, someone is, you don't have to wait for a training organization or your L&D to create content, because we were talking about, content becoming obsolete before, or, even modernizing it and all of that. And today, I learned how to make achar or pickle or whatever it is on YouTube. For every little thing I'm, watching a video. So, and the production quality doesn't have to be, superb, but it's good enough for me to understand, right, how to do things. And that's what we're seeing people do in the LMS space. And we have, of course, our recommendation engines, which is built on the AI, and it picks up and says, hey, you know what, Vikas is learning this. You're a CEO of a tech company. You should be learning this as well. Or here's what, recommendation to click on, because people who have similar qualifications as you are doing this. Your peers are learning this. So those kind of recommendations also come up, and we're seeing that being used extensively.
And particularly, I guess, with your product, it makes a whole lot of sense because you're targeting essentially professionals, creative professionals, professionals in training education, and they have this urge to share what they know. And so you can sort of use that through the UGC route. Umesh, what are your thoughts? I know you've structured something around the themes of future of learning. I'm happy to flip your slides here.
Sure. I mean, both Leon and Savita described these various challenges of doing this skilling program at scale. And definitely designing such programs has always been a daunting task. We are trying to understand the target learning audience, their specific learning needs, their readiness currently, and then where they will receive this learning, how they will apply it, or how long they will be in a position to apply it. So all this, you are trying to, make it like you're trying to map these whole learning resources out there in a more personalized, engageable, trackable, so that you can, monitor the impact overall for the business and the overall performance of the workforce, right? So can this all be done in a more structured way and in a more scalable way for a long-term transformation? And that's where this framework-based approach is needed. And so I have these few slides that just describes this approach, and maybe I'll just talk at length. And we'll be sharing these slides as well. So maybe I'll just talk more of how we help some of the customers rather than going into the more details of each of these aspects. But this future of learning framework specifically focuses on addressing the skilling challenges in a more holistic way by combining both content and the technology strategies. The framework addresses all the aspects of like organization skilling, reskilling needs, which may differ from whatever, maybe your domain, the industry that you are into, maybe the sizes of the company, or maybe other internal factors and so on. But how this content maybe can be made really scalable for keeping up with the technology, how learners will engage with that content, what processes can be automated with that to get that whole seamless workflow throughout the learning process, and ultimately how do you measure the outcomes as you are making these incremental changes in the whole experience. So the framework sort of builds on more leverages the Harbinger's custom content and technology services. Also some of the partner platforms that we engage with, and that brings a lot of capabilities to do it at a scale, and some of the learning IPs that Harbinger has in terms of products and the accelerators, which may be leveraging some of the latest of AI technologies to create these skilling transformations that typical organizations are looking for their roadmaps. Right. So maybe I'll just describe each of these, these strategies, I would call it, or the areas, which in the next subsequent slides. So let's first talk about how do you actually, make the content ready at a scale. So typically, when it comes to skilling, the main challenge is build the content rapidly and as per the changing needs of the learners, or leveraging existing content that can be more best possible way that you have. The solution may be depending on what kind of volume of content, what types of content, what kind of modalities in which it needs to be delivered, maybe the amount of reuse that you are looking at from these courses and so on, right? So just to maybe share a story about how Harbinger recently helped a global consulting firm, specifically in the leadership development, to create and deliver this learning content at scale. So the customer wanted to support training in multiple modalities, including instructor-led training. There was virtual classroom, there was micro-learning courses, web courses, and so on, right? So the approach that sort of helped here was the LCMS platform-based solution, which transformed their existing content through templates and meta tags. So such that, it can be created rapidly and reused across the modalities as well, right? So we also build custom integrations with multiple LMSs to facilitate integrated publishing workflows. So this enabled like entire build to publish workflows with more efficiency for discovery of the right content, which can be better curated for a very targeted audience. Right. So essentially, these aspects and these solution enablers, help you build the content at scale, and ultimately, the overall, build to publish workflows also. Now maybe on the next, we probably once you have this content, the next problem typically you end up with is how do you keep the learners engaged? And to engage learners, we definitely need to think about multiple solution approaches. But there are two important areas that needs to be considered typically when we are planning the engagement. One is how is the experience planned here? Is it more like a micro learning? You're talking about just a few minutes of engagement. You're talking about the reinforcement. You're talking about the video-based training, maybe a game-based learning, and so on. And the other aspect is what kind of programs are these? Like, is it onboarding new hires? Is it cross-skilling existing staff to take up some of the new technology adoptions? Or are you planning management training? Are you planning leadership development? So each of these engagements completely differ in terms of how that learning experience needs to be built. And for all such areas, you really need to come up with the right set of tools and mechanism that can sort of enable you to do it deliver faster. Maybe I'll just take up one example here, which is we sort of help a global training provider in biosafety, biosecurity area, primarily for small enterprises in about 35 plus countries that they've been doing it. The training provider wanted to enable the long-term learning retentions as the primary learning goal, I would say. So the customer used Harbinger's Sprinkle Zone, which is a learning reinforcement platform, to onboard these employees from these smaller organizations and send them a periodic assessment questions as nudges. So this helped customers to achieve the said outcome, which went beyond just awareness raising and helped all these institutions, all these to institutionalize the whole safety approach or compliance from point of view. So it's quite sort of not that motivating to go and read those safety manuals, right? But this periodic nudges motivated and made sure that the compliance still can be achieved. So, I mean, there are different strategies of engagement, but if you are planning to do it at scale, such sort of mechanisms are required to make it at a scale.
Absolutely, Umesh, and this is brilliant. I mean, in the short amount of time we have, I think there's a lot of good information here. In fact, some of these tools like Skim Through, for example, that lets you decide even whether to spend time looking at a video by just skimming through it, are great ways of scaling the delivery of content. Considering the time availability, I'm gonna sort of ask you to just do an overview of the next two steps. The first being automating processes. So what do you mean by automation within the context of skilling?
Yeah, I mean, when we are trying to scale, and the automation is probably the default thing that comes into mind, right? And so you're trying to figure out what are those automation opportunities. Maybe I'll just give a quick example is we sort of help one of the large LXP platform by integrating and automating some of the multiple channels of collaborations, and maybe it enabled the whole content management process for the administrators, so that the overall how the learner's experiences can be optimized by easy discovery, or how do you enable the tagging mechanisms throughout the process, or workflow integrations that can sort of make that experience very seamless. And you go with more like a platform-based approach that sort of makes it more faster and easier to implement such automations. And there could be multiple engagement places. Yeah.
Got it. So through a single learning experience front end, you could experience multiple courses coming from multiple digital publishers,
right? And
they would still be tagged across in a consistent fashion, right? So that's what we accomplished there. Okay. And lastly, there's data and insights, correct?
Absolutely. And I mean, that's the most important aspect. Like, how do you really measure the impact of the learning? And so you need to maybe customize how this connects with your performance tool, or maybe collaboration tool, or just to get your short-term, long-term impact overall. So quickly, I mean, Harbinger helped one of the company where it was more like a mid-tech size services company looking to get some of the like how do new members will be more productive on the new technologies, right? So a solution implemented using Harbinger Academy, which had a competency framework based proficiency map. So it sort of enabled how to design the learning pathways for individuals and assigning those more personalized learning goals within that system. So the whole L&D function and the field managers get complete visibility of what's the skill readiness throughout the program, and using all the details of competency reports, maybe quiz scores, maybe assignment feedback, and overall learning program dashboards and so on. So that's whole analytic strategy sort of help measure that impact at a scale.
Thanks, Umesh. This is a great vantage point from which to look at how different companies are using what you showed to be just a few examples of how they weave together these technologies and tools, as well as content strategies, to either build or engage learners, improve the flow, and generate insights. So I guess in our session today, in a nutshell, making skilling scalable is challenging. And then a holistic solution has to combine content as well as technology. It's not enough to throw content out there, but you need to have all these other pieces like engage learners, automate processes, analyze data, and all that needs technology. And finally, you can build a skilling roadmap using, a combination of, the learning platform and technologies on one hand, but really the content and tech services around that. That's one of the ways in which Harbinger has been helping customers. So this is the time when I'm going to hand this back to Anuj to talk a little bit about Harbinger and then open it.
Thank you very much, Vikas. So talking about Harbinger, I would like to share with our viewers that Harbinger is a global technology company that builds products and solutions that transform the way people work and learn. And how do we do that? Well, the future of work, learning, and automation is here. That's what we saw in today's discussion. So Harbinger's long experience in these areas is distilled into clear frameworks that our customers use as ready templates for transformation initiatives. So when you work with Harbinger, you will experience our focus on delivering unique learning experiences, and that too by significantly optimizing your training spend and reducing the time to market or development time. So for 30 years now, we have been innovating alongside organizations that are in the people business, serving the human resources, e-learning, digital publishing, education, and high-tech sectors. We at Harbinger, we experiment with new technologies, easily embrace new ideas, and creatively apply them to address the business challenges faced by our customers. So Harbinger's custom content development offerings, the services that we offer are content transformation, custom learning, learning design, nudge learning, gamification, accessibility, translation, and localization. Talking about our product development offerings, Harbinger can help you with product management advisory, experience design, product engineering, product analytics, integrations, and automations. Talking about Harbinger and how we are placed as a company. So as a group company, we are a team of 850 professionals, which includes a team of 150 e-learning producers. So we are small enough to care and large enough to deliver. I'm also happy to inform our audience that Harbinger has developed over 500 products, worked with 400 plus customers, and 43% plus of our workforce and 40% of Harbinger's executive team comprises of women. With that, we are almost out of time, maybe just 3 minutes left. We have a few questions here from the audience. Maybe I'll take up one, but rest assured, we'll be answering all these questions and sharing the responses from our panelists with all the audience after the power hour. So I'll take the first question. So how does the volatility of current global job scenarios with large scale layoffs impact the skilling program design, time, and effort which is invested by organizations? So any thoughts from any of our panelists?
So in most of the cases, these are planned attritions. These are, organizations letting go of people where they feel that the skills are either plentiful in the labor market, so they can get it when they need it and let go of it when they don't. It's also, they're not letting go of capabilities that are hard to find. So the skilling programs don't typically target this population. So I think the lesson for all of us as employees is to constantly skill ourselves. And if our organizations are giving us opportunities, with just what everybody does these days, we should take full advantage of that. Most organizations have learning funds and things like that. So all of us need to do that. But the impact on a skilling program is typically very low because it's part of a larger talent strategy, like I mentioned earlier.
True. And that kind of answers the second question from our audience is that, what are some of the approaches to balance scalability and personalization in skilling? So, you mentioned, Savita, so it's more about the scale as opposed to, personal upskilling. I'll take one last question for today, and quite an interesting one. So how does artificial intelligence technology like ChatGPT-3, how is it impacting L&D? So anyone, Cleon or Vikas, you would like to take it up?
Okay, can you repeat the question again? Make sure I got it.
Sure. So how is, the newer technologies like artificial intelligence, example, ChatGPT, how is that impacting, e-learning and L&D?
So as we've talked about during the last hour, a lot of the content and training is not just organized L&D departments delivering. So how do you share from one subject matter expert to another? How do you share between teams and between people trying different things and finding, hey, I just found something, this worked for me, this might work for you. And the fact that we're using technology really speeds up the whole development and delivery process. So, if we want to get something out, it used to take us a week or a month to get things out. You can turn things around in an hour or two, even from an L&D department these days. So to me, each of the technologies will have pros and cons, but I think we all need to look at how do we take advantage of the different technologies as they come along, because their new ones are going to come out tomorrow.
Absolutely, Cleon. So, Vikas, would you like to quickly touch upon it or add to it in 15 seconds?
I totally second that. I think we're gonna see a lot more e-learning produced with the same effort, thanks to generative AI, both in language as well as in visuals. Expect the e-learning visuals to be a lot more interesting with things like DALL-E.
Absolutely, Vikas. So we are almost out of time now. So, as promised to our audience, we have included the link to the ebook that we mentioned during the beginning of this session on the future L&D trends. In the chat window, you could just click on the link and download this ebook. It will kind of help you explore the factors driving e-learning, future of learning, pre-pandemic learning versus post-pandemic learning, and learners and educators' perspective. And it will also touch upon, the latest future L&D trends. And we have also included the LinkedIn profile links of our panelists. You are welcome to connect with them via LinkedIn. And would you like to get more information on how Harbinger's learning experts can help you with your e-learning initiatives? You may please email us at info@harbingerlearning.com. So we have included all these links in the chat window as well. And for those questions which are unanswered, we will be getting back to our audience with the answers to that. So with that, once again, thank you, Dr. Vikas, and thanks to our panelists for this wonderful discussion. And I'm sure that we are all going back home with some food for thought today. And I would also like to thank our viewers for joining this session through Zoom, and you have been an amazing audience. Thank you once again. Take care and have a good one.
Thank you, Anuj. Food for thought and food for action, I guess. Thank you, Savita and Cleon, for your insightful comments. Really appreciate bringing your experience to this Power Hour today, and hope to have you back again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.